So back in 2017, I started to evolve my marketing practice from a full service web design and digital marketing agency and becoming more of a consultant, more of a fractional CMO and advisor. And at the time, there was really no playbook for this. Fractional CMOs weren't really a thing. If they were kind of called these virtual CMOs, and it was a very nascent business model. But for a variety of reasons that I'll kind of get into today, I started to become a consultant. I wanted to sell my expertise and not do all the project management and execution and try to eke out a profit at the end of the day on the back of execution work, which is typical for agencies. And I didn't want to scale a big agency, which I'll also talk about. But I found this article, this post that I wrote. I don't even think I ever published it, but it was super interesting. I was on my iPad. I opened up my old Ulysses app, which is a writing app I used to use. Now I just use Apple Notes. And I noticed this note here that was just in my inbox and something I just had there. And it was really interesting because it really broke down my thought process at the time when I was making this evolution. And I think my intention was to write this as a blog post that I would publish on my website and really make a case for this evolution in my business model. So I'll walk you through it today because it's an interesting artifact from this time when I switched from being a solo agency owner with contractors to do the execution work to more of a consulting role, which is what a lot of people are at least in my community, my vicinity, are trying to do. So without any further ado, I'll walk you through this. I'll read it to you and I'll break down my thought process a little bit as we go. And so here basically is my Ulysses app. And you see here that, I don't use this anymore. So it's in read-only mode. And the last time I edited this was 2017, and it looks like December of 2017. And so I titled this Evolution. So I guess this is the evolution of the business model. And so this is really kind of a communication that I was going to send out at the time. And so let's see if I can bump up the size a bit. Not sure I can. Yeah. Okay. So let me read it to you and I'll break it down. So it says, if there is one other constant in life aside from death and taxes, it's change. I learned a long time ago that if you don't embrace change, you're doomed. And that is especially true in today's rapidly changing economy. By the way, I haven't edited this. I don't even know if it probably needs a bunch of editing, so bear with me. It's scary making changes, especially when you have a good thing going on, right? At the time I did have a good thing going on. My business was fine. Our tendency as humans is to maintain the status quo because change represents risk of losing things that are good. And if we're not careful, fear of loss that can be detrimental to growth. And that's true always. Anytime people are evolving or changing their business, there's always the fear that it's all going to get blown up and you're going to end up having to get a job and go back to all that stuff. So every so often I revisit my goals for the future. I look at the areas like my health, my family, lifestyle, financial well-being. I compare where I am today with what I want for myself and take a good look at the delta between those 2 points. Okay, so I was obviously in a reflective mood. It was the end of the year. So doing this motivates me to make changes that will contribute to accomplishing my goals, despite how good things may be. I know I'm not even close to where I want to be, and if I don't make changes, I know I'll be where I am forever or worse. Right? We need to make changes. That's the only, or have change imposed on us. So the last thing I want to do is become complacent, is what I said. That's one of my biggest fears. Complacency leads to unfulfilled potential, and if there's one thing I would regret on my deathbed, it's unfulfilled potential, among other things. It's been 3 years now since I ventured out into the unknown and became a full-time marketing consultant. So I had a job in 2014 that I left to start my agency. So at this time in 2017, it had been about 3 years. And I don't for a moment take my progress for granted. And most businesses fail within 3 years. And I don't for a moment take my progress for granted. I've been extremely fortunate that has worked for me. In the spirit of change, growth, and moving into a new year, welcome 2018, I'm glad to formally announce a slight but significant change to how I do business. And so I looked this up and I don't even think I published this, but I'm going to explore further to see if I did. Before I get into it, if you're a client of KV&W today, nothing will change. I will continue to work with you in the best ways that I can. Going forward, I'm offering consulting as my primary service offering. You can learn more about the tiers of service I offer on my consulting page. Presumably I link to it. Essentially, there are 4 core ways you can do business with me. 1, the digital advisor. That's what I called my advisory service at the time. Get responsive advice in your digital marketing strategy. I advise you on finding, vetting, and managing your team while answering any questions you may have along the way. Again, that was just my first crack at explaining and communicating how I was going to do this. Number 2 is the digital advisor plus. Get proactive advice. So I guess the difference here was like one was more reactionary. When you need it, I'll be there. And one was more forward leaning. I don't do this anymore, so don't take this as the way to do things. Get proactive advice plus access to my Rolodex of trusted marketing digital marketing suppliers. You manage them. I advise you proactively and in response to your questions. The digital CMO, number 3, the highest tier of service where I advise, oversee, and manage your digital strategy for you. Custom engagements, custom solutions for unique needs, goals, and challenges. And then Site Love, which was a project that I had going on the side. Separate offering, it says here, which includes WordPress hosting, maintenance, and support. So I was trying to I still do WordPress web development, maintenance, and support for the clients that I had back then. It's funny, I make in the tens of thousands from legacy work from those old clients that I built websites for and helped them with their websites long ago. I don't take on new clients doing that. It's all consulting now, but I had this site called sitelove.com, and that was dedicated to that. So that was a productized service. I was just trying to take this thing out. My admin handles the coordination between my developer and the client. So I don't even touch most projects. I do keep an eye on things, but that's how that works. And so I was trying to keep that as a separate entity, separate business, so it doesn't confuse the core offering that I have here. So as we go along, so that was what I was putting out there, announcing this, going to make a blog post about it, so on and so forth. And so that was my plan. So again, I wasn't stopping clients, but any new lead that came to my business, I would refer them to this new model. Why am I making these changes? So there's a variety of reasons that I'm moving toward offering consulting instead of agency work. The main reason, however, is that I believe it's the better solution for my clients and for me. Here are just a few reasons. So this is just interesting because it was, it's just interesting to be able to peer into my brain at the time. And some of you may resonate with this if you're kind of going through a similar thing. Number 1 is alignment of incentives. I believe there's a conflict of incentives when selling both strategy and implementation services. I write about it at length in another article that I recommend you read. Essentially, it means that an agency's main purpose is to sell you more work to do. That's how they make their money. That means you're constantly trying to make value decisions about the recommendations. You're motivated to keep costs low and to make smart investments, and they're motivated to do more implementation work to increase their financial goals. You're at odds, at least somewhat, with even the best intentions. So again, this isn't a moral conflict. This is just it's like going to a barber and asking if you need a haircut. It's challenging to get an honest answer, although most people are honest, and that's not the thing. But really, it's about, I'm trying to create this environment where it's super aligned incentives wise. So hopefully, I make that case clear. I think it was the article was, the digital agency model is broken or something. Kevin.me/broken, I believe, has that. And it's not a perfectly articulated logic, but bones of it are good. And to be clear, this is not a moral issue, just like I said a second ago, but an incentives issue. I talk about that in the article above as well. Number 2, solve harder problems. I like solving complex problems. Consulting allows me to work with organizations to fix systemic issues, to fill gaps in their teams, and to capture opportunities with them, for them, on their behalf. I especially like working with rapidly growing companies to ensure they're making the most out of their opportunities while protecting the downside from potentially costly mistakes. I get to use my skills in a more fluid environment on behalf of my clients. So, I was noticing at the time clients hiring agencies and doing stuff and trying to manage it on their own. I was, at the time, my target market, at least a couple of my best clients and who ended up becoming consulting clients, were managing things themselves. And frankly, we're doing a lot of things poorly, and the suppliers were not great, and there's all kinds of issues. So I wanted to be more, let's look at the whole picture together and I'll help you navigate it. So number 3, keep a simple business. I know how I want my future to look, and at least right now, I don't want to build a typical marketing agency with an office and employees. Nothing about that appeals to me right now. I like being location independent, working from my home office or a co-working space. Perhaps in the future that will change, but I like running a simple business. Number 4, increase profitability. Last year, I ran at approximately 30% profitability, personal income. So that's basically after all my costs. I assume all of it is my take home, so that's not including a salary. And so, the margin I had on all the work I was doing is about 30% of my revenue. So you can imagine the volume of clients and work I would need to take on in order to make a good living. And this is a challenge, right? Like if I was doing, let's say I did 300,000 in revenue and I was taking home 100, I had to work hard for that 100. And I don't remember the exact numbers at the time. I don't even think it was 100 at that time. So, for me to do even more would have, first of all, I was pricing too low and all these issues, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I found myself working extremely hard for what ended up being only a small portion of my billable services. This leads to spreading myself wide and thin across a large number of clients instead of going deep with just a few. This is not in the interest of myself nor my clients. And the remedy is to either scale or change. I chose change. Number 5 is provide a better solution for clients. I probably should have led with this, but again, I didn't publish this, probably didn't even edit this. This is probably written stream of thought. when you hire an agency, you not only run into the conflict of incentives, there are a number of other downsides that business owners and executives face. What happens if you need to fire your agency? Well, you lose all your business knowledge that the team has developed through working with your company. You start from scratch with a new agency. The new agency needs to learn about your business, the market, what works and what doesn't. This costs you enormous amounts of time, hours, days, months, and money, tens or hundreds of thousands. This is the equivalent of losing an entire marketing department, which to me is crazy, right? A lot of people just kind of outsourced it to this one big agency, or maybe two agencies, someone who did one discrete part and someone who did everything else. And then, when inevitably you need to change, it's like you're kind of redoing everything from scratch, as opposed to just changing out individual parts, which is kind of the value prop of a strategist, of a strategy consultant, is I can help introduce the individual parts. And then if something is not working with one of them, we can replace them with another person who's better suited for them, and rather than wholesale replacing everything. So who's going to make decisions? So most business owners and executives that I speak to are not digital experts. So again, I would replace the word digital with marketing. I don't really use the term digital marketing anymore. It comes up every so often to differentiate from offline marketing, but I call it marketing now. They are business owners and operators. The problem with hiring an agency is who incentivized to sell you stuff. Is that you need to judge whether it's a good investment for your company or not. So I don't know. Obviously, this needs editing. The buck stops with you. Is the work quality good? Is the messaging accurate for your company? Did they cut corners with their code or technical work? Who knows? Hiring me puts you on your side. I vet the work. I help make financial decisions about where to invest resources into your marketing. I measure the results, and it's all done for a fixed fee. I am incentivized to get results so that you can continue to hire me to do the job. I'm not incentivized to sell you more work or slip poor work under the radar, because it's not my work. At the end of the day, I just want to produce the best results possible. The next value prop is who has time to manage it all. So if you're on the digital CMO plan, which again would have been kind of your fractional CMO thing, you get a lot of time back. You get to focus on the strategic parts of your marketing and not the weeds, not the technical nitty-gritty that is below your pay grade and outside of your area of expertise. You can reallocate your time to higher leveraged activities. If you're on one of the advisory plans, you can save weeks, months, or even years spent trying to figure out things on your own. While you manage the implementation of projects, you get to cut out the time spent thinking about and researching solutions that can have major upside potential. So I would probably position this more as, while someone on your team functionally manages or coordinates projects, you don't have to be an expert to be successful at marketing. Build your own team. This is one of the best parts of my consulting practice. Your team is not contained within an agency relationship. You get to build your own team. Key specialists do their individual work while working together under a unified strategy. You get to add and subtract people as needed. If I ever stop working with you, you keep the entire team. The knowledge stays with your company and not with me, and doesn't leave with me, right? So when I was an agency, if you didn't like me, well, I'm taking all my toys and going home, then you got to start from scratch with someone new. In this way, I can be replaced with an in-house marketing manager or a different consultant, and the individual suppliers can all be replaced because they're direct relationships with my clients. I make introductions to suppliers, to developers, designers, writers, so on and so forth, and they become direct relationships with my clients. I don't mark up their time or take a commission or referral fee. So they really are their relationships that they can interchange or not at their own preferences. So that's the end of the article. So it says, the business will continue to evolve over time, but for now I'm excited to make the transition in what I offer so I can better serve my clients for the long term. And that's it. So, I mean, this is was interesting for me to stumble upon because it showed my thinking at the time, showed my value proposition, showed how I explained it. So if you're thinking of making a transition into fractional CMO or advisory or strategy work, one of the things you may want to do is keep your current thing going. So at the time I had kvnw.com. That was my marketing agency. Today it's kind of a catch-all consulting page, but at the time it was an agency, and I just left it there, and I started a new website on kevin.me. I've talked about this in other videos, but I've started a new website at kevin.me, and that's where I focused on my consulting work. And anyone who came in as a lead through KVNW, I just referred them over to my personal website, and I said, look, I'm not taking on agency clients anymore. Here are my new services, which is kind of like a deconstructed marketing agency. I'll either manage it for you or advise you on it and help you build this team and build your marketing activities effectively and help you measure everything. So that was the value prop. And so I kept all my current clients at that, with what they're going. I transitioned one of them into consulting, one of them into the digital CMO program or whatever. I think I charged $4,000 Canadian for that, or $4,500, I can't remember. And so, yeah, which would have been about $3,000 US or so at the time. And yeah, so that allowed me to de-risk it. And it took me a few years, right? I had 2 clients in that first year that I transitioned to consulting. I worked with a business coach at the time, which was really helpful. And then around 2017 is when I registered the domain to start specializing in co-working spaces. So one of those clients that I converted from agency to consulting was a co-working space, and that led me to eventually specialize in that world around this time as well. So I built my personal site as a catch-all with these services, and then began the process of, exploring and developing specialization in the co-working / flexible office industry, which is where I do most of my work now as a consultant. But that's a story for another day. And so I just wanted to share this with you because, the value prop, you can basically say, here's why this model is not in your best interests or mine. And, I'll either manage it for you, advise on it. I explained it much better today than I did back then, but the bones of this are good. And so if you're thinking of making a switch from either agency work or freelance work, I would say you could either just rip the Band-Aid off and put your new services on that page, or start a new website to kind of re-articulate where your new model, and then drive leads from the agency over to the other one. My agency was getting leads at the time. If you looked at B2B Marketing Toronto, for example, which is where I lived, then you would find my website. You may even still find it if you look that up. So I didn't want to change that. So that was giving me cold leads that I was able to convert, or at least in theory, convert over to the consulting side. So I'll leave it there for now. Hopefully this has given you some just insight into where my head was at back in 2017. And yeah, if you're interested in learning more of this, you can head over to kevin.me. There's links to hundreds and hundreds of articles, as well as more YouTube videos, podcasts, all kinds of stuff. I have a membership, training, so on and so forth. That'll link you to the appropriate places for all those things. And make sure you're on the email list. And if you're watching this for the first time, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, whatever you want to do. But we'd definitely love to have you aboard. I talk about the business side of independent marketing consulting and help you grow a profitable business around your expertise, not just your hands. So without any further ado, I'll leave it there, and I'll see you in the next video.